we are looking at how to produce the non-metallic silver trim that I used on my Alpharius. This technique I'd very much locate in the advanced users bracket. Instead of using singular techniques, so layering, wet blending, we tend to move in and out very quickly between techniques. The further you get along with your brushwork, especially your technique and developing your own technique and developing the kind of artist that you are, you'll tend to find that there's a breakdown. There's an unconscious breakdown of these techniques. There's no longer delineated between using the brush to do layering or wet blending. We all blend into one another. The techniques blend into one another very rapidly on the surface of the miniature. So to begin the process, I have mixed some Elendil purple. I'm sorry, I know that's not how it's spelt, but that's the way I've been pronouncing it for so long. I don't know how to break. I feel like I sound like an idiot when I try and pronounce it correctly. So Elendil purple will have to stay forever. That's from the scale 75 range, and I'm also using a whole black with this. So that is the Thamar Black by scale 75. For the next stage, let's actually have a look at what we're doing in reference to the colour wheel. Essentially what we are doing is using complementary tones in order to desaturate one another and produce a interesting looking grey. In this case we're starting with violet, well, a desaturated violet, something with a low value desaturated violet. So that means a colour with a lot of black in the base. And then we are using yellow, which you can see is directly opposite violet on the colour wheel, to grey it out. And then we're also using blue and touches of brown to imitate sky earth metal. So essentially the breakdown of using yellow on violet is to desaturate the colour and create a slightly more interesting looking grey colour. And you can experiment for this for yourself. Why not try and base a blade in, I don't know, a blue green, add black to it, and then use orange, red orange, to highlight it. This technique has all sorts of different variations. This is the one that I've decided to use for this project, starting with a base of dark violet, then using yellow. Once we have established our base layer, I am mixing some sol yellow onto my brush and watering it down slightly, and I'll begin the initial sketch stage. So knowing exactly where to place these shadows and highlights can be difficult at first, I know. Please refer back to the non-metallic PDF where we describe how we break down complex surfaces into simpler shapes and then trying to develop a light source from there. It does also help to have reference images to work from. In this case, feel free to use my own work with your own and where to plot the initial highlights and shadows. So I'm going to leave the video at normal speed for this exercise so you can see the kind of brush strokes I make, the speed at which I do it, because speed of brushstroke is very important. I can't up the speed on every aspect of the videos purely because it doesn't give a fair reflection of how I manipulate the brush on the surface of a miniature. So I'll leave you with this, just see how I manipulate the brush on the surface, the kind of speed I use, and where I place the actual brush on the surface itself. Next up, we are using Hyrule Blue. So this will be our highlight. So it does feel really bizarre when you first do this, to highlight the purple with yellow to begin with, and then highlight that with blue. It will end up looking very, very odd. But even at the very outset, just to reassure myself as well that this will work, I've added a touch of white into the mixture just to begin the highlight, so I can kind of reaffirm to myself that I'm not just going to destroy a £70 model. No, it does work. Technique is there. So I'm just using Hyrule Blue to highlight the yellow, and then I'll increase the amount of white that's in the mixture, and then I'll highlight that. Bizarre, I know, very, very odd technique. Try it for yourself. The first few miniatures may not look great, but I promise you, practice does make perfect. Destroy a few miniatures. Don't do it on your Alpharius. Don't spend £70 and do this right off the bat. Try on something. So the Stormcast Eternals will be perfect for this, or any Space Marine kit. So you can see how when the paint is still slightly wet, I've increased the amount of white in the mixture, and I'm just going back and forth with the brush stroke in order to produce a brushed steel effect. So again, I'll leave you with this. You can see how I move between the three colours, between the yellow, blue and the white, to build up the contrast and build up the light source. Now that's been complete, I'm adding the specular highlights of pure white, and the paint's a lot thicker in this instance. I don't want it bleeding out into the surroundings, I don't want to blend it at all. I want this to stand very much on edge, and this follows the line of light that I've established down his shoulder blades, across his shoulders, across his chest, across his shoulders, across his face. Now I'm adding white. Further on, I do water down my white mixture, and I'll use that as a glaze over the entire surface, being careful for it not to fall into any recesses or into any shadows. We want to blend things together later on down the line, and in order to do that, in order to make the colour shift more diffuse, we use glazes, soft glazes of white over the top, and then we can go on and reinforce it with blue and yellow and browns and what have you. But getting a little ahead of myself for this. It's sufficient to say that we just need white as the specular highlight. Here I am reinforcing the shadows and the highlights, so I've just got a tiny amount of Elendil purple, and I'm washing this into the shadows. From here, after we've established the main shadows and highlights, we will end up with a slightly odd looking reflective surface. Nothing seems to be blended together. From here, we'll be using glazes to unite those very disparate tones. Building up further with white, reinforcing it. Again, glazing just to help the soft diffusion between these very disparate colours. Okay, and that is the shoulder pad. As you can see, very unusual technique. It yields amazing results once you get a handle of it. Once you get your head around the idea of that you are able to create an interesting grey using purple, yellow and blue, with a touch of white and black in there, of course. It's a helping hand. Once you get your head around that, you do create some very, very good reflective surfaces. So the actual filming process of this takes the video in its entirety took 3 hours when edited down, getting rid of all the mistakes and me getting up off the chair and just walking around. So I will be posting up the entire process, but essentially we're using exactly the same technique here. The further videos I will be releasing are more of a reference guide. If you want to know how to do certain portions of the miniature, it's there as a reference for you. I very much doubt I'll be including much in the way of audio commentary to it, purely because the technique I've shown you here, I've explained it as best I could. If you do have any questions on this, it's vitally important that you do get in contact with me. If I haven't explained anything well enough, or you want certain points of it expanded, please contact me and I will be able to offer some guidance. Okay, I'll be flitting in and out of the video to see what pops up, but yep, that's what we end up with. A very nice, unusual looking silver effect that really pops, more so than if you just use combination of black, white and, I don't know, blue, which we normally do with steel and silver effects. Okay, we're coming to the end of this segment of the tutorial. For this, I've left it all at normal speed. In future tutorials, going forward with the non-metallic on Alpharius especially, I will be speeding up the video clip. By now you should get an idea of the brush stroke, the brush length, and the speed at which you should be working. But if you do need any more feedback, again, I know how unusual of a technique this is, how bizarre it is. So if you do need any further guidance or feedback, please get in contact with me. And until next time, enjoy!